Hi, Salman. We really appreciate your time and welcome to the cast. How are you
Hey,
doing today?
good. Nice to meet you.
I'll just jump right into the first question then.
Sure.
So, Salman, we would love to hear about your story and career development. Let's start from the very beginning. How did your post secondary experience lead you to where you are today?
You said start from the very beginning, so I'll start from the very beginning.
Sounds good.
I moved around quite a bit in my childhood. I was born in Pakistan, and then in grade one, I moved to the UK,
Hmm.
and then I moved to Saudi Arabia when I was in grade four, and then I moved to Canada in grade nine. And I think at one point in my early childhood, I did like 8 schools in 8 years. So the reason I share that is just because when you do that, you kind of develop an ability and kind of this need for change in a way. You learn how to adapt quickly, and you also learn how to build relationships with people from different cultures. So I think that was kind of my background. So when I started university, I went to University of Toronto at Mississauga, and in high school I wanted to do something that would keep me engaged. So that's where I ended up starting with PwC. And PwC was I joined PwC because they had an opportunity to go see multiple industries. Like, you worked in finance, and I was on the audit side, but it allowed me to get perspective from a whole range of industries and continue that ability to adapt quickly and learn new things. In my time, I realized, okay, maybe audit I didn't want to continue doing. I wanted to get closer to the business. So
Hmm.
I joined Novo Nordisk, which is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. From there, I started in financial operations, and I initially joined as a controller. And then, within a year, I moved into heading up our financial operations team, and then moving into financial planning and analysis after. About 2 years of doing financial planning, then I took on financial planning and supply chain as well. So it kind of all ties together. It's like I think I have this need to continue to try, different things and continue to learn and develop. And I think that's really what's kind of gotten to where I am today.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great motivator to have that skill. So, as you mentioned, you're currently working as the head of financial planning and analysis as well as supply chain at Novo Nordisk. So, for young individuals to pursue a career in financial planning and analysis and possibly supply chain, what advice would you give them in terms of developing the necessary skills and knowledge? Are there any certifications or qualifications that you think they should consider?
Yeah, so I think, the I would say the CPA is a really good base. Gives you an understanding of the basics, right? But specifically for FP&A, I wouldn't say that it's a requirement. I think it's nice to have the understanding and the background that you get from a CPA, but you can also learn that if you have done an MBA, or you can also learn that if you've just worked in within finance. So I mean, it's a nice to have, but I wouldn't say it's a requirement, right? What I think is really important is just that within FP&A specifically is having a curious mindset. And I think you need to try to understand the business. And I think this is where you move away. I think for me personally, when I moved from financial reporting more into the FP&A side of things, financial reporting is quite detailed and quite particular, trying to make sure everything you get right. With financial planning, it's more vague, and you want to make sure in order to contribute, you have to be able to willing to understand the business and get more involved and build relationships, right? And a lot of it actually comes down to strong communication skills and analysis. Like, if there's complex issues, but within FP&A, it's really about simplifying and communicating the issues in a clear way to drive decision making. And I think those are skills that you can build relatively quickly. I think if you set your mind to it. I think one thing that I have found that the consulting firms do a really good job at training that. There's somebody on YouTube. They have like I think their tag is called Firm Learning, and he's providing that consultant training on YouTube. So I think just that's something that I think I've told somebody members of my team to watch, because it helps you talk about how do you communicate message in a very simple way, and a top down approach. And there's a lot of these McKinsey kind of nomenclature that I think is helpful for young professionals to understand.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully our listeners will tune into that YouTube account then. So, our next question is whether you could share any tips or advice for aspiring CPAs on successfully navigating their certificate and maximizing their career opportunities.
I'll just be honest, it's a lot of hard work,
Mhm.
right? I think it's about stepping up. I think one thing that served me really well in my career is never to be shy away from problems. Like, I think whenever it's a challenge, generally, if you put your hand up and say you'll take it on, I mean, if it's a problem anyways, then, my approach is most likely you're going to be able to fix it. And then if it gets resolved, then great. If it doesn't get resolved, it's still you're still learning, right? So I think I would just say, like, if I look back in my career, like, I think when I initially took on financial operations, it was like a team of 5, and we had, 3 vacancies on the team. So it's like, okay, how am I going to do this? I didn't know, but you just put your hand up and you jump in, and you figure things out. And then later when I took on FP&A, it was right in the middle of COVID.
Mhm.
So, like, there was a lot of uncertainty around forecasting, but I also didn't know how we would deal with it, right? But you just jump in and you step up. And I think that is something that if you're able to do, and, show that you're interested in learning and show that you're able to take on the more challenging problems that the organization have, I think it serves you really well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for being honest and sharing that advice. I'd also love to know your thoughts on how technology and automation impacted the field of financial planning and analysis and supply chain. What are some of the key tools and technologies that professionals in this field should be familiar with?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think, things are kind of transforming before us very quickly. As much as you'd like to stay up to date, I think things are transforming so rapidly. Like, there's things that I am not aware of, but what we have noticed is historically it was a lot of Excel usage and people using formulas. And, I think that we're moving away from into dashboards that are automatically updated and linked. So some of the tools that, I would recommend, specifically what we're, there's visualization tools. What we use is Power BI, there's Tableau, there's ClickView. But, for us, those are some visualization tools. One or the other, it's good for people to start getting an understanding of and how to use those. The other ones that we've used is Alteryx. Alteryx helps you automate, processes. And, it's something that might take 30 to 40 minutes you can program, and then it just takes 30 seconds, right? So we normally have a combination of use of Alteryx, and then which the results flow into a dashboard. So those are kind of some of the tools that I can think of. We've also looked at RPAs, which is robotics process automation, and that can, just run 24/7 and automate some processes. So those are things. But I think for that, somebody early in their career, I would say the one to focus on would be these visualization tools like the Power BI. The other one that I've noticed that, somebody on my team actually, I'll share the story, was I actually learned from them. Was I think I had asked them, to draft an email and send out to the whole finance team. And
Yeah.
then I noticed that they use Chat GPT. So I haven't, jumped into it too much, but I think there's a lot of opportunity with AI as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to use the skills and tools that we have at hand. And thank you for pinpointing those specific tools and technologies, even in such an ever changing industry. So, finally, our last question for you today. What are some key qualities or skills that you look for when hiring individuals for your team? And how can young professionals set themselves apart and stand out in the job market?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to what are the skill sets I look for, I think one of the first one has to be like a great attitude, because there's a lot of technical skills that can be trained. And you can, over time, like, if you have the right attitude and you have a mindset that you want to, learn and develop, like, people will be able to pick that up. Strong analytical skills, especially just in the field of us, I think that's important. And then I think more, more than before, what we're seeing is the finance role is becoming more of a finance business partner,
Mhm.
right? Rather than, a specialist working in a silo. Communication skills and ability to build relationships with the people that you're working with, right? Because within an organization, you interact with people from all of the different functional areas, and being able to build strong relationships is actually a key factor in getting ahead in your career, right? So I think that was the first. And how can they really stand out in the job market? I'm trying to think of that one. Is it is, I think it's just, it's challenging because of it is a competitive market, right? But just showing, even if somebody's early in their career, getting necessary work experience is really important. And it doesn't matter like what kind of work experience is, because there's a lot of transferable skills that you pick up from different roles, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, early in my like, I mean, I worked at a call center, I worked in customer service, but all of those, like, different things train you in some way, shape, or form, right? So having as much of transferable skills that you can get, especially working, and I think customer service is really helpful as well. But those are some things that come to mind for me.
Yeah, definitely. That's very good advice. So that was our last question. So thank you so much for your insight on such an important industry. And I'm sure our listeners will benefit greatly from such great advice. And we thank you for your time today.
Appreciate the discussion.
No problem. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much,
You too.
Salman.